Hello, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court, the very last Queen's Court of the season. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen. As always, we have a lot to talk about. I'm joined by Geoff Klafter from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports Blog. Link in the description, as well as resident panelists on Dope Soul Sports Talk Weekly and other shows. Geoff, how are you? Shout out to the chat as well.
I'm good. If y'all didn't check out Knicks and Bruises, Steph and I were on before, and it was a
Yes, we
fire
will.
conversation. Y'all need to check it out on the replay if you didn't catch it live.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about whether or not Tibbs firing was a Dolan decision, whether he was back meddling, and we also talked about the next coach of the Knicks, who we would like it to be, particularly, or if we didn't have a particular choice, the type of coach. So good conversation. Definitely go and check that out. Tonight we're gonna do a season review, season slash playoff review. We'll talk about the next coach as well. We'll talk about some roster stuff. We're going to this is the last show of the season. We're going to try to cram everything we can in the next 90 minutes or so. Geoff, let's just start with the season itself. And you can put the season and the playoffs together. You can separate them out. It's totally up to you. Do you think this past season was a success or not? What are why or why not, and what are you basing your decision on?
I do think it was a successful season. First of all, we advanced further in the playoffs than we did the previous two seasons. There are a lot of us out here that said we could have, should have, would have gone further. And I'm not going to argue with that. That's definitely true. But anytime that you do advance around further and you beat the defending champs, like we did, I think that you have to consider it a success. But I also want to go back to what you said at the beginning of the season.
Mhm.
And what that was, and it was such a good point, is that the regular season is fine. It's whatever. But the playoffs are going to be key because then we're going to learn what this team is made of. We're gonna learn what this team needs to improve on. We're gonna learn how close this team is to a championship. And what I think that we learned is we're not that far away.
Right.
Right. And I don't know, maybe we get thumped by OKC if we get to the finals. Who knows? But I mean, look, you hold on to game one against Indiana. I don't think you have the Blues in game two, and maybe you win that series and we're still playing. If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, it'd be a Merry Christmas for everyone, right? But so you can't play that game. But in that, you did learn more about this team. We learned things that worked. We learned things that didn't work. We learned things that we need to improve on. We learned about elements to this team that we don't necessarily have that we need.
Mm-hmm.
We learned about some of the role players on this team and how, like a Josh Hart, for instance, I think has shown that he's not really cut out to be a starter, and that the best version of the Knicks is probably one where we get a starting two or a starting four this offseason and are able to relegate him to the bench. We learned that we need probably another ball handler off the bench who can create a little bit of offense for himself. And we've talked about that for a long time. We thought maybe Campaign might be that guy, but he wasn't. Not in the playoffs when it mattered. He had a good game one, and then he completely fell off the cliff and nobody could rescue him. So I think he went into one of those Super Mario Abyss things that you just fall forever. I don't know what happened. He won't be back to find out. But again, that's something that you find out, we don't really know, but we had a season for these rookies to get better. And it looks like Hukporty has a lot of potential to be a backup five in this league if he gets healthy again. So that's encouraging. I think we learned that Tyler Kolek, I think, has a future somewhere down the line. I think he may be more on the Deuce McBride track, though, where it takes him a couple, 2-3 seasons, and then he's really ready to be a rotation piece. We saw that our offense starting lineup is a little bit clunky, right? The balance between OG and Bridges and our starters isn't great. Cat doesn't get enough touches a lot of the times. Cat and Brunson don't really have a synergy. That's not to say that they can't develop one, but they certainly don't have it yet. And Brunson isn't comfortable feeding Towns on a consistent basis for whatever reason, whether you call that schematic or trust or whatever the case may be. I'm sure all of that is based in fact, and so we learned a lot about what this team is. It's an excellent team that has ways to go, but the ways is less than last year, right? We're a little bit closer to a chip. So that's what I take from this year.
Yeah, thank you for that, Geoff. Like really um, going through it because you're right. I think not just me, multiple fans said we're going to find out in this first year, what this, what we need, what this team, like this is a figuring out, finding out type of year. And while the Knicks were figuring and finding, making up my own words, they still found themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals. Shout out to you, Tony, Knicks and Bruises. I just asked if you felt, and you can base this on the regular season and playoffs separately or together. If you thought this season was a success, and why or why not, and what's your criteria for why or why not it was or wasn't?
I mean, I you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my bad. I definitely say it was a success. Expectations was Eastern Conference Finals potentially. Um, Once we knew what the seeding was, going into the playoffs, that became less likely. I thought we showed a lot of fight in the playoffs. Particularly, I mean, not in all throughout the playoffs. I mean, the first round, we had a young up and coming team who really had nothing to lose. They had no they say ignorance is bliss. They didn't know no better whether to fear us or not because they did it and they gave us their best shot, and we had to fight to win that series, even though it was relatively quick. It wasn't a long series, but then we really showed what we were put together and assembled for in that next round, and I thought we finally started to show a remnants pardon me, of some of the things I thought we were missing throughout the year. Once we made those trades, I thought we lost some of our toughness in that Boston series. It showed that's still built within that DNA of this team with 20-point comebacks. It was really like probably one of the greatest Knicks moments in my career, followed by one of the lows, in the next round. I think once we beat Boston, the majority of us, but I'll speak for myself in particular, I was looking at the finals. I was overlooking Indiana. You know what I mean? Even with a lot of you guys, Queen, you in particular, telling me I was wilding out and Indiana was a good team. You know what I mean? But I got humbled that first game, and I still don't think we're that far away from them. That gap is not that far. You know what I mean? And I think we could bridge that gap with some more chemistry, with us building and growing and learning together. But yeah, 100% successful.
Yeah, I definitely I agree with both of you. I thought it was a success. I didn't think Eastern Conference Finals are bust because during the regular season, I felt I felt two ways. I felt that Boston and Cleveland had proven they were better than us, at least in the regular season. We struggled, playing against them. And I was like, how can it be ECF or bust when if you lose to one of those teams who, had a better record than you and then beat you in the regular season? At the same time, I really thought Cleveland could be had we matched up with them because I felt like regular season success is one thing, and maybe I'm double talking, but regular season is one thing, but the playoffs is something totally different. And Cleveland, at least historically, to me, hadn't shown that they were a mentally tough team, right? We didn't get a chance to play them, but once we beat Boston, I'm with you, Tony. I didn't overlook Indiana. I thought it would be a tough series, but I thought we would win the series, and that we were going to the NBA finals. And everyone talks about game one, but to me it was game two. It was the lack of response per se in game two, and maybe they were still a little stunned and maybe weren't over, possibly. But I think that still tells you something mentally. They're human, don't get me wrong, they're human. But to take a punch like that and come back for game two, rearing and ready, it takes it takes a lot. So I'm proud of those guys. I'm proud of those guys. I do think we could have beat Indiana despite losing game one. Um, as much as I rooted for Tom Thibodeau, and wanted him to do well because he was on that 90s. I'm a 90s Knicks. I watched the Knicks in the 80s, but my love for the Knicks was really solidified in the 90s, right? With Pat Riley and Van Gundy, and Thibodeau was a part of that. And I really wanted him. He couldn't get a chip then. They were oh so close. I wanted him to get a chip this time around, so I was rooting for him. But I think Tom Thibodeau left a little something on the bone too. I don't think it was all him. I do not think us not getting past Indiana was all Tom Thibodeau. I do not. But I do wonder if the lineups were a little different, what would happen. I do wonder if instead of the double big lineup, we went with a Deuce McBride, or tried the double big lineup and then, went to a Deuce McBride or Shamit, whoever, a 5-out lineup. I do wonder what would have happened. I think the most disappointing thing for me was game 6 and just seeing how hard Brunson was working, and we had no answer for that. And I know some people will say, and I don't know if that was all Tom Thibodeau and lack of schemes to get him open. I don't know how much of that was the other guys not hitting shots, so they didn't have to pay attention to them and can key on. Like I don't know, I don't know, but I just saw that. Wow, we not we not getting anything. We don't have any counter to what they're doing, to Brunson. So I still think it was a success despite that. And despite all of the things Geoff brought up, thank you, Geoff, for the way you laid it out. And we still got to the Eastern Conference Finals without that synergy between Cat and Brunson, without with Brunson still figuring out when to go for his, when to get, others, involved, without this robust 5-out lineup, right? Where the numbers weren't good for the starters, we still made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So,
and with minimal the starters weren't good, and the bench played minimal minutes. So that, what I mean, there's something in between there that was successful somehow.
Yeah. But overall, I still think, I still think it was, I still think it was a success. Let me know in the chat, just put success, unsuccessful, so that we know how how you're feeling about it. Any last thoughts? I know we've talked about this a lot. Any last thoughts on Tom Thibodeau before we get into what we like to see in a new coach? I also want to talk about roster changes we'll like to see, and a few other questions. But if you don't have any last thoughts on Tom Thibodeau, we can just move into the new coach. But if you do, this is your chance.
I just want to wish him success moving forward. I do think his coaching career may be in jeopardy because even though he's been successful for us. I also think the noise has been loud the whole time he's been here. You talk about the players vote him, the coach. They don't want to play for the most anonymously, so we don't know who those players are. Whether it's the same players every year, they asking the same question. But I wish him the best. I hope he gets another shot somewhere, but I don't think it's likely.
He's 67, right? I think that might play a part as well.
But he can stack up those millions as a mattress and sleep well at night.
That's a fact.
Oh boy. The coolest 718 said it was unsuccessful. Musa Azakar, game 1 win equals success. David G, definitely a successful season. Ajay, shout out to you. Ajay's season was definitely a success. Still Knicks fans, success. Jarrell on the diet. We just got the S, so I guess that means success.
But the Pacers fan thinks we weren't successful, so good on you.
Yeah. I just wanted to. I was gonna let Queen know, Jordan Smith.
I saw it. I wasn't trying to give him no shine though.
Appreciate. Well, keep the comments coming. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Let's just get into the new coach real quick, because I definitely want to talk about individual players on the roster. I want to talk about Brunson. I want to talk about Cat and Brunson. I want to talk a lot about the players. But listen, what are you looking for in the new coach? What's the top 2-3 things you're looking for? Geoff, then Tony.
First, a way to maximize our Karl-Anthony Towns on offense, so we can make things easier for Jalen Brunson, where we get a nice flow to the offense, and that we can utilize OG Anunoby. I know I meant to say this on Tony's show. I think it was Fred Katz that reported that things weren't just quite right in that locker room. It wasn't contentious, but when OG didn't touch the ball for like 4 or 5 possessions in a row, he would sulk a little bit. And then you had a little bit of this and a little bit. And Mikal Bridges would have his ups and downs and roller coaster kind of a thing. And so my first thing is getting a coach in here who's going to maximize the synergy between that starting unit, especially because I feel like they have a lot of talent that's there. That was underutilized and not maximized. So that is part one, and I guess the other thing is just flexibility on defense, like being able to, if things aren't going well, maybe going to a zone for a few possessions, being able to switch it up and have the team be able to defend and throw different looks at you if things aren't going well. If you're playing a team like the Pacers, we trap and hustle and we do a lineup that's more guard heavy so that we make Halliburton and those guys work more to get their points, as opposed to whatever it was this year. I thought we were very plotting and very slow at times, and I think that not on offense, but defensively with Towns and Hart in together, I thought it was a clunky mixture. And so I don't know. Those are the kind of the 2 things that stick out in my mind, because I don't think we're that far away. I don't think we need to necessarily make wholesale changes. I think we just need to be a little 10% better. Let's call it that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tony, what's the top 2-3 things you're looking for in a new coach?
Oh man, I'm so conflicted. Like from the outside, like from the organization standpoint, I need them to actually have his back, support him, like believe in him. That's number one. From the X's and O's perspective, I'm with you and Josh. Like pardon me, Geoff, expanding the offense, some type of offensive creativity. I thought, you know, obviously coming from Tibbs, that's the area he lacked with the offensive firepower we've had on this team. I thought that was something that we would have saw more growth throughout the year, and I honestly could say it was the opposite. I thought we started the year, it looked like we were trying to figure out what everybody could do. What the cat and Brunson pick and roll looked like. We saw that a lot early, and it was successful. And as the season went on, it felt like it reverted back to where we were the previous year, the tail end, where we relied on Brunson and to kind of do everything. And I thought we were too talented to kind of rely on Brunson. But I also don't want us to, forget about the defensive side of the ball. We have two guys on the starting five right now, as the team is constructed, that are defensive liabilities, and we didn't figure out how to master that at all. We didn't figure out how to work within that. Sim has been calling for zone. To be honest, you could say since Thibodeau has been here. So even with that, some defensive versatility too. But I am obviously torn because I feel like we need experience, but I feel like a younger coach or maybe an inexperienced coach is the guy that is gonna have the mind to kind of expand and look at things from a new perspective that maybe an older coach may not. He may be already stuck in his ways.
Right.
So I am torn on the who. And the other thing is a new coach comes with no baggage, right? He comes with no critique of previous failures, if you will. You know what I mean? So we do get that opportunity for the coach to grow along with implementing things to help the team grow. But at this stage, we try to win a championship too. So can you do that? Can you get a young guy who, without the experience, that has the respect? It's so much to ask for.
They'll have a Grizzly veteran on the bench usually, right? And if they listen to, that's not going to help them in game as much. Though there are some times where assistant coach will whisper something in your ear, or sometimes they'll have a little huddle before during the timeout, and the coach may whisper something. So they'll have a Grizzly veteran on the on the team. That's usually the case, right? If there's a young coach.
Mm-hmm.
I want offensive. I want a coach who is good schematically, offensively and defensively, based on the team that we had. If that includes zone, if that includes whatever, how can we get the best out of this group of players defensively and offensively, right? And I also need a coach that's in the game. And I think this is overrated. I think Tibbs, just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean an adjustment wasn't made, right? But somebody in game that's okay doing something unconventional. So if somebody is killing us, like, you know what? Let me try Precious on Siakam just for a few possessions. Let's just see if I can get anything out of that. Somebody who's willing to do things like that. But like I said on your show, Tony, something that's not talked about enough. The NBA is about relationships. If you want to keep your job, you have to be able to connect, particularly to your best players, right? So definitely somebody that they're going to respect, that commands respect, that fine line between communicating with them, having a good relationship with them, but at the same time, holding them accountable and making decisions that's in the best interest of the team And that could be a little tricky if you don't have the relationship, because you're trying to make a decision that's in the best interest of the team, but then you lose a player, you lose the locker room because because you don't really have that yet. So somebody who kind of like understands that is not going to just come in like, yo, I'm the coach right now. This is what we're doing. The stat says this, we're doing this. You going to the bench. You go. Like, you really have to gain the trust of your locker room. So just somebody who understands that, that dynamic. And if you get that and you got the players and they want to play for you and your schematics is good and your lineups and your bench coaching is good, I think the Knicks stand a really good chance. But I don't have a particular coach in mind, to be honest.
Can I add just another thing that I feel like is equally as important is especially when we're talking about if it is a younger coach or a less experienced coach, but really a coach, any coach in general, you know what I mean? Because I want you got to empower the assistant coaches as well, right? So you don't always got to be the smartest guy in the room, and you want guys that you can lean on, not even lean on, but if they come to you with something, you can take that into a full consideration, right? And be able to kind of empower them to give you advice, because obviously if you got guys that expertise in different areas, then you should be utilizing their expertise in those areas. So yeah, just as equally as the head coach, I think is the like you said, the assistants. If he's young, you might want a guy that's more experienced backing him up, that could tell him some things that he may not see, and vice versa. An older guy might need a younger guy that could kind of tell you some of these new nuances and help you relay the messages better. So the whole staff, I think, has to be really on the same page, and just as important on each level.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think the new coach is going to be given time to get to the championship? Or do you think he's coming in with the expectation that they get to a championship next season? Tony, I'll start with you this time, then Geoff.
Well, that's my biggest worry, that he is not given the adequate time to adjust, to figure out the team figure out him, to implement his strategic strategies or whatever. So that's my biggest concern. I can't even say I expect it. I'm concerned about it. Because it does take time. So my biggest hope is whoever it is, even if it's not the organization coming out and saying, I'm not going to say amending their statement, but just giving some type of endorsement of why they picked this hire and what their expectation is moving forward. Because I think that would be the best way to kind of nip that in the bud. Give them an endorsement after the hire as to why you did it and your expectations. So now everything is on Front Street. You know what I mean, from the beginning. So I do expect that. That's what I'll say. I expect some type of press conference and some type of wording, and even from the coach himself.
You asking a lot for a press conference now.
Well, I'm saying even if it's not the front office speaking, I would think the new head coach, is going to have an opportunity to speak. So even if he says, "Hey, I hit my expectations is such and such and such," you know what I mean? Hopefully he don't put it on himself and say, "I gotta win the chip this year." You know what I mean? But give yourself some grace and some room to grow. You know what I mean? Because I think that's only fair coming off the situation. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna say. I don't know what we're gonna get from the. I don't know how they're gonna word it, if they're gonna publicize it. You know what I mean? Even if they don't, I hope they privately tell this coach, hey, you have a window. We signed you for 3 years. You know what I mean? This is the expectation. We want this ring by such and such. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think
Jeff,
that's only fair.
yeah, I agree with you, Tony. Jeff, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'll just say context always matters, right? And I think every season has its own context. And we kind of learned that this year when we beat the Celtics, the context of the season changed for many of us, right? In other words, in the beginning of the season, if you said we were going to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think most people would have said, oh, we're on the right track. We're building, we're natural progression, second round, third round, and so on.
Mhm.
But then when you beat Boston and I'm not meaning to disrespect the Pacers, they're a fantastic team. Like the difference between the Knicks and the Pacers was hair off frog's back. I mean, really, really narrow margins there. And so, you see that in the series, you saw that in their regular season records and the whole bit. But, so context matters. You need to be lucky in order to win a championship. So is it, if we get to the finals and we lose, is that an indictment on the coach? We got to get him out of here? But not necessarily. If we get to the finals and he blew all 4 games with, just head scratching decisions like he was coaching for the other team, then, maybe that's a different context, but what was the health of the team? In other words, did we have all of our best players available for the series? I think that was one of the things that helped Thibodeau 2 years ago that hurt him this time around. We were a healthy roster. We were, and because of that performance last year and the health of the roster this year, the expectation was, oh, this should be easier this time around, and it's never easy, right? It's always a grind. It was a grind in the Pistons series, it's a grind in the Celtics series, because that's what the playoffs are. Like, very few teams waltz through the playoffs without any resistance. That's just, I mean, sometimes you have to be able to come back from 19-point deficits in 4 times in one postseason, like the Pacers have done, right? I mean, like every series they've had a game, like they did it against us, but they also did it against Milwaukee. They also did it against Cleveland. They did it in game 1 against Oklahoma City. So, sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle with these things, but again, I think context matters. And I'll say this, the Cavs may be without Darius Garland for an extended period of time. Jason Tatum is going to miss most of next year, if not all of it, with an injury. So if there's going to be, like, to me, that screams that this is a window thing, right? That the window is open. You need to take advantage of those facts, because once Tatum gets back, obviously it gets more difficult. A healthy Darius Garland, Cleveland becomes much more dangerous. So if it's just, and the Pacers have beaten us all 4 times we've played them this century in the playoffs. So obviously we have to figure out that portion of it too. But, if it's just a case of the Knicks and the Pacers and everybody else is clearly below that, and I'm not saying it will be, Detroit is on the come up, the Magic may be on the come up, and you never know who else may enter that equation. But so all of those variables matter. All of that context matters. But I think the expectation is that this team wins at least 2 rounds of the playoffs. I really do.
Would you be okay with the Knicks taking maybe losing in the second round, given that it's a new coach? Maybe even, I'm not sure what changes they're going to make. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some roster changes. I don't know if it's going to be major. I don't know if it's going to be minor. Would it be a failure, or would it be a step back if next year the Knicks lose in the semifinals, given that it's a new coach? Or do you still expect the Knicks, even with a new coach, to hold the line? And if they don't, you would consider it a step back? Tony?
Yeah, I think we have to hold the line. And again, that's not winning the chip, but you know what I mean, Eastern Conference Finals has to be the expectation. I feel like the consensus is we're capable of beating Indiana. right? So basically, what I'm getting to is there's always context that matters, yes. But if we're looking at the landscape, we're capable of beating Indiana. I think we're capable of beating any team. So it shouldn't be who we matched up with in the first round that is the context to say, oh, it's okay. No, I don't care who it is. It could be Indiana in the first round by for whatever reason. If it's the same team as currently constructed, and offensively we figured out you know how to maximize that, we should be a better team. So no, I think the only unfortunately, and I feel bad because I don't want to put that onus on a new coach, but I ain't fired the old coach to say we gotta have a new coach. I think that expectation is there. So you got to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals 100%.
Yeah, I think context matters. I think listen, if we have the same team, you think about Cleveland, right? They changed the coach, but they brought back the same team. So it's just one piece, that changed. I don't know. If we bring in a new coach and we make a major change,
That changes things. That's the context I will stand on and say
yeah, I mean,
that changes things.
I don't know. I don't, I don't know. I think we're right back to we're gonna find out about this team. We're gonna find out about this team next you know, next year. So I think obviously if the Knicks lose, I don't care who they bring in. If the Knicks lose in the first round, I would not consider that a success. I think if the Knicks lose against a formidable opponent in the second round, 6, 7 games, you know, um, check back with me once the season starts. I'll have a better, I'll have a better answer answer for you. Um, let's get into the players.
I don't know
We,
if Jeff.
Jeff, answer. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Oh, I got to answer. I answered first.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into the players. Let's get into we brought in Cat, right before the season, probably right before training camp. I believe we traded for him. Having gone an entire season, including the playoffs, do you think that was a good trade for the Knicks? Do you think that raised the Knicks ceiling? Do you think that yeah, let's just end it right. Do you think it was a good trade for the Knicks? And do you think it raises the Knicks ceiling and makes it even more likely that they win a championship? Obviously, there's other components to that. Jeff?
Well, I think the Towns trade was a good one. I think the Bridges trade was a bad one. But so I don't know.
We talk about Cat. We talk about Cat.
So yeah, I didn't realize how good Towns was offensively until I got to watch him every night. Like you see the numbers, but then when you see it live and you see like how dynamic and a 3-level scorer he is, it's really incredible. And so for me, I like the Towns trade. No offense to Julius Randle, but I think he's a very good player. But I think being able to put Cat at the 5 helped us this year in a way that lineups that featured Randle and Achua probably wouldn't, in my opinion. So there's plenty of disagreement could go around with that, but I thought that was an added dimension. And again, I think part of the reason why we didn't love Towns as much is because we didn't utilize him as much as we could have. I think that we left a lot of meat on the bone, to use that slogan. I think there's a lot more that he can do. I think the next coach is really going to have to empower him, and is also going to have to foster the relationship between he and Brunson, because I think that's the biggest key to the Knicks moving forward. Is with those two on the roster, I'm not sure you're going to be able to win a defensive championship. I think you're going to have to be elite offensively in the history of the NBA, like a Nuggets or a Celtics or a, the Pacers are a good example, or the Thunder are too. Now, some of those teams played excellent defense as well, but I just think if that's the formula that you're going with, then I think you're gonna. I think that's what you're gonna have to aim toward, and maybe the OG Bridges mix doesn't work as well with Cat and Brunson either. So maybe, you might need to fix that on the margins too. But I like Towns and I like Brunson. So I if I had the choice to do the trade again, I would do it. So I guess that is my answer.
Okay. Tony, do you think that the trade was a success? Do you think it raised the ceiling of the Knicks as far as at some point getting a championship, winning a championship?
I do think it raised the ceiling, especially the long term ceiling. Considering he's under contract, right? Considering we didn't know what direction the team wanted to go with Julius Randle long term and moving forward. Before we traded for Cat, I was on record of not wanting to trade for Cat, but I did do a random video one day saying that I did think that he was the eventual target. And one of the main reasons why I was okay with it was because I felt like moving forward, if we were looking to make that big move down the line, Cat was going to be a better piece to have as an asset than Julius Randle was. And I thought, the talks about moving Julius, when it was speculatory, it wasn't a lot of traction. You know what I mean? It was about adding other assets and things of that nature. So I do stand on that aspect, even if it's not long term for us. I think having him here and potentially flipping him, not asking for it, but you know what I mean? I think that's an easier sell than it was with Randle. So and then just even everything that I was unsure of with Cat, I think from the very beginning, him being here, he's changed my perspective of who he is. Even though it feels like the comedic and the zesty comments and all that have gotten louder here in New York than I've ever even heard before. The soft thing, I throw that right out the window. There's no way you could call him soft. This guy's out there grabbing, career highs and rebounds. He's still putting on a dominant offensive performance, and we can clearly see that he's not even being a focal point of what we do, and he's still putting up those type of offensive outputs. So, yeah, I'm a stand corrected and say I like the trade, even though I was one of those people that didn't want it before it happened. And he's changed my outlook on who he is as a basketball player.
Yeah. I think I have mixed feelings. I think before the season started, I loved the trade. I thought if we were able to get him to play at his ceiling or near to his ceiling, that would definitely raise the ceiling of the Knicks. Having a center that can hit threes, and just have the offensive game that he had, I thought that I definitely see the Knicks winning the championship. Saw the Knicks winning the championship with him, and like you, Geoff, or maybe that was Tony, having watched him for the season, his offensive game, what he can do on the offensive end, his touch when he drives to the basket, the angles at which he makes layups, his offensive game, he got the full package. His bag is deep on the offensive end. But as good as he is offensively, he's just as bad on the defensive end. And I knew he wasn't a great defender, but I didn't know it was to this proportion. And I know there are some stats out there that says he's not a bad defender, The eye test though doesn't look good. Um, and I think it's different things on different nights. Some nights I think it's just effort and not getting to his spots. Other nights it looks like he just doesn't know what he's doing or what the game plan is. Um, yeah, looks different on different nights. And to your point, Tony, Sam, maybe a zone to help hide him and Brunson, so you can't put them in pick and rolls, right? Because it's a zone, maybe that helps. But they're gonna have to find something. They're gonna have to find something because, and then there's some nights defensively where he looks like he's getting the plan. He's consistent with whatever the whether they're switching, dropping, whatever. He just seems to be on point. But I don't think it's something that can happen consistently, game in and game out. So the new coach is going to have their hands full trying to figure out the best defense to play with both Cat and Brunson. And to your point, Geoff, even if you are a offensive juggernaut, and I'm leaning toward that, I'm leaning toward having a 5-out team where everybody can pass, dribble, and shoot, but you can't be a sieve. You can't be, you still have to have some semblance of defense. The defense has to at least be passable. And hopefully that's something that the next coach can do. But because if we can't, it's going to be hard for the Knicks to win a chip with just one-sided. If it was just Cat, fine. But Cat and Brunson, no. But we shall see. And to your point, if we do decide that this doesn't work, he does have value. He does have value if we were to trade him. If we were to trade him down the line. How did Cat look to you in the playoffs? Because I think the stats say one thing, the eye test says something else. Just from watching the series, what did you think, Geoff, and then Tony?
He's too passive sometimes. Like he goes, and not only that, but he goes from like passive to ultra aggressive Hulk mode. Like he'll go. And there are occasions where he, as Anthony D said, he allows himself to be taken out of the game. But then there are some times when he gets it in his head that maybe because he feels like he got fouled and he's just going to force it and ramrod it. And I'm taking this and I'm going to, run over this guy. And then, and here you go. And then he's on the bench in foul trouble. And so to me, that would be my biggest criticism of him. And I think he was playing hurt in the playoffs. Everybody's hurt. I get that. But I think his knee injury was real. I think his broken finger was affecting him. I think that the bone spur in his thumb but if you're going to play through it, you play through it. Right. So, I just think that he has potential to be an even better player next year. Whatever ails him, I hope he has surgery or whatever. Fix it so you're 100% ready to go in training camp and get after it. Because when he was healthy, he was an all-NBA player, like first team all-NBA player for a good portion of the start of the season. So,
yeah. His offensive game is it's just, and to watch it every night, he reminds me, like, even when the Knicks lost, I love to watch Carmelo. Now, it was just like poetry in motion. I loved it. And there was a good many games where I felt the same about Cat. Just watching this guy operate, on the offensive end. I thought he did well in the playoffs for us. Statistically, he did well. I think to the eye test for me, he did well. There was just some games on the defensive end where I just pulled my hair out. I just pulled my hair out. And I also thought there got to be times when we can run the offense through him. Like, think about not just give him the ball to score or give him the ball and if he has a double team, he passes. Like, that's just basketball. I just thought that, remember Joakim Noah? I hope I have his
Yep.
name right.
Yep.
With when Derrick Rose got hurt, they just ran like he was a hub, and they just
Mhm.
ran the offense through him. We did it a little bit with Hartenstein at times, we get the ball into him and they would cut off of him and he would find guys. I just feel like we could do that with Karl-Anthony Towns, and that way Brunson can rest. Brunson might be an option, he might not, but I mean, it's in Towns' hands to create. So I would have liked to have seen seen more of that. Shout out to Anthony D joining us today. He and Brunson were made for the pick and roll. What happened to it? You know what? I think part of it is that you on a pick and roll, there has to be a pick that makes contact. And I don't know if that's Cat or I don't know if that's Brunson not setting his guy up, but on the pick and roll, it just seemed not to be a lot of contact, not to be a lot of picks. And when they were, how many times did Brunson give it to Cat when he was open on those pick and rolls? He would come off open for a 3-point shot and Brunson would keep it,
Queen, I think that's it right there. Again, I don't know if this is Thibodeau or not, but even with iHeart, we didn't see that until year 2. The more so the back end of year 2. You know what I mean? So it took time for that to be implemented with that offense. That was one thing that I thought we would see year 2 with Cat, hopefully with a new coach. We do. But you took the words. I was waiting for my turn because you took the words right out of my mouth. I feel like, maybe a new coach will find times to run the offense through Cat. I've been screaming for that all year long as well. I think that changes the whole dynamic, especially not just to give him the ball and go score, but to your saying, he's an excellent passer. We have guys surrounding him who are good offensive players, to where now it's about schematically implementing.
Right.
Get him in the box, get him in the post, and figure out how to get other guys the ball, as well as figure out how to use your size and dominate down there as well. That goes to your point of leaving the meat on the bone. But again, not just Tibbs. I think Brunson also reverted to what he's used to, what he's been successful at. I think he's used to getting picks to set up himself. Point blank, period. Like that's what the pick is for in his brain. That's gonna have to be an adjustment, that the pick is to open up the offense. The pick is to hurt the defense. It's not just for your individual benefit. And again, this time he's throwing shots. I'm just saying this is what he's used to. So that takes time to learn. And then just the individual chemistry of, Brunson, you gotta wait for the pick to be solid before you can move off it. Cat, you gotta wait until Brunson's got, you gotta wait till the pick is utilized to either make your move and read it. It can't just be pick and pop. It has to be a read of pick and pop, because the play may call for pick and roll. You know what I mean?
Depending on what the defense does, correct?
It does. Right. So it's also about the read from both players, Brunson and Cat. So, but again, time will change that. If these guys are as good as we think they are, time will get that to where it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that really gets to me about that Indiana series. They had nothing for Cat, and somebody mentioned that in the chat. They had nothing for Cat, and could we have found a way? Maybe had we utilized him more, went through him more, could we have won the series?
But Queen, had we done it throughout the season, so it's not even about the bench players. You know what I mean? Like, if we would have just utilized that more throughout the regular season, then it wouldn't have been a foreign concept when we needed it in a particular series against the Pacers. You know what I mean? Like we never went to that throughout the season to kind of have that in our bag.
Yeah. Geoff, any thoughts?
Well, I agree with Jamrock. I think that in the chat, I really think Brunson rejects too many screens. I think that that's part of his game, and I know with Bridges and Hart, we run a lot of ghost screens for that very reason. I think because it's almost like his game isn't as good when he gets the screen. I don't know why that would be, but so I think it's a combination. But I also think that, as you said, I don't think Towns does a real good job of bodying up on the screens either. Like that was one of the things I saw really improved from Mitchell Robinson this year. His screens were much better than in years past. Like he was really a category screener for most of his Knicks tenure, but this year he was really focused on making contact on those screens and creating the mismatch for Brunson. And so I think we've got to do a better job of making contact on our screens, and that's just basic stuff, right? That's fundamentals. That's high school stuff. So, they're certainly capable of it. It's just making a point of it. And then, I think it talks to what we talked about at the beginning of the year with Brunson also, is that the expectations are higher now, right? He has more pressure. He's more the focal point. So he's got to be, his process has to be better. He's got to be smarter. He's got to utilize his better talent and not play the same way that he did 3 years ago when he didn't have as good. Like there's no reason to play that same way when you've got more talented players around you at nearly every position, right? So utilize the players around you, trust them, get them involved, get him off ball some. I think that would help. I'd love to see him get some off ball catch and shoot threes because he's one of the best in the league at it. So,
well, thank you for that segue, because I was about to go to Brunson next anyway, and because I want to talk about Brunson and Cat together, but let's just start with them separate. So we talked about Cat. Just your thoughts on Brunson, Tony. We'll start with you, then Geoff. On Brunson's style of play, do you think there needs to be any changes to his style of play, or do you think this is who he is, and so the next coach has to find a way to maximize that, get the most out of that?
I think it's more on Brunson than the next coach, to be honest. Like unless the coach is just figuring out, better or when to sub them out more, and like that. I think that's the only thing the coach can really do to kind of figure it out. I think it's really on Brunson. Again, it's about reads and making the right ones. It's about adjusting your tendencies. It's about adjusting to your new teammates and building, chemistry with them. Back to the whole thing with that pick and roll with him and Cat. This is more on the Cat side, but when Cat's setting them picks in his brain, he's used to setting picks for himself. You know what I mean? Not for himself, but to benefit himself. Right. You know what I mean? So he's not setting that strong pick. You know what I mean? He's really trying to roll off of it and get open. He's really trying to use that. So both of them, they really just gotta figure each other out. I think it's the biggest adjustment is really for Brunson though. Cat has made that adjustment from being the A1 guy to kind of relinquishing some of that duties with the emergence of Ant Edwards and you know what I mean, even with Mike Conley early in his tenure with Cat, Jimmy Butler, whether that was successful or not, but he's already adjusted to that and kind of figuring out. Brunson, this is still, you know what I mean? He's just settling into this new A1 role. I'm the guy, you know what I mean? So for him, it's a bigger adjustment for him to kind of figure out. But yeah, I think it's on him more than the coach.
Do you think, and I'm gonna ask Geoff the same question, do you think Brunson being ball dominant is his best self? Do you think he could still be Brunson if he wasn't a ball dominant player? If the ball wasn't in his hands all the time to create for himself and to create for others, do you think he could still be effective, still be the best player on the team, still be that guy playing a different style? Or is he just one of them guys that this is just who he is, and you got to figure out a way to win with him this way?
Here's why I think. Here's why I think he could be even better. But it's up to him to figure it out. Number one, I think the opportunity in clutch moments, clutch time, that's still going to be his regardless, right? So whether you want to consider it the fourth quarter, whether you want to consider it the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, whether you want to figure it out in the middle of the game, just clutch moments. I think that's him. And that's when you could be at your best with the ball in your hand. But I also believe if the team is at its best collectively, his job becomes easier. You know what I mean? If he has to be a catch and shoot guy, I think his percentages go up that more than his normal percentages. So I think that could benefit him. It's really about finding those spots, picking those spots. But I still think he could be statistically just as good learning how to utilize the rest of the team, and you're learning when to take over. I thought we found spurts in that last year as well as this year. It's just unfortunately last year was right around it was that January stretch, you know what I mean? And he had to adjust quickly once Randall went down and once injuries mounted up. I thought we had some of that this year as well, but not just his fault. I think part of that was the consistency around his supporting cast. So, you know what I mean? If Mikal's not consistent, if OG's not consistent, if Cat is not consistent, guess what? He's gonna revert back. You know what I mean? He's good. So it's really about figuring out. I think it's just I think he can adjust, and it could be even better. But it's about figuring that out.
Yeah, Geoff, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I actually do think that Brunson with the ball in his hands, as much as he has his mind, as maddening as it can be at times, I think that is the best version of Brunson. And I think one of the things that this next coach is going to have to do is play to his players' strengths. Like, coach to his players' strengths. Don't coach to a system. Like, examine your team. These are the things we do best. I'm going to accent those things, right? That's what Rick Carlisle does probably better than anybody. Like, nobody's going to confuse Obi Toppin as a lockdown defensive player. Well, that's not what he asks out of Obi Toppin. He says, leak out, run the floor, get your dunks, get your wide open threes, play with pace. You know what I mean? And so he puts him in a situation that's best suited for his success. And I think that we need to do that with all of our players. Like, I think that you know, I think that we relied far too heavily on Josh Hart doing things that that aren't his elite skill set. Let's just put it that way. Throughout the season. And I think at times in the playoffs that came back to haunt us when he didn't have, you know, his triple-double Josh Hart games. And when he did, we were great, but he wasn't consistent with that because I don't really think that's his game. And so I think that we need to accentuate what our players do well and at the same time try and limit the stuff that they don't do well. And I think that one of the things with that is trying some zone defense. I think if you have the double big lineup, especially, I think you could get away with the zone with Mitch and Cat pretty easily. And if Brunson is off the floor for that stretch, you can probably just go man because, you can put 4 good defenders around him. Vice versa, if Cat's off the floor, I think you can put 4 solid defenders around Brunson and go there and just, let's maximize the talent that we have.
Yeah.
Can I just say?
Absolutely.
I agree. Brunson's best stuff is being ball dominant, right? But that might not be what's best for the team, for us collectively. So I'm saying if you can still give him his moments of having that, but kind of taper them down throughout the game, because I also think for the best team, for us to be our best selves collectively, he has to come off the ball a little bit. I think it's inevitable. I think, number one, us running it through him, hello, hot water, that's making the defensive job easier. We've seen it in the Pacers series, and we've seen it collectively throughout the playoffs. And you could kind of go back to last year as well. You got to utilize all of the weapons. So I do agree for him individually, his best self is dominate the ball. But I don't think that's it for us collective. For us to reach our ceiling as a team, I think something has to give. There has to be some pulling tape.
I think it depends on what do you mean by ball dominant. Because ball dominant doesn't necessarily mean you're pounding the ball for 20 seconds and then taking a shot. I think this, to me, is tricky. Because Brunson has to remain the head of the snake. He's the best player on the team. You look at Shai's the best player on the team. Yes, other guys get involved. He's the best player on the team. He puts a lot of pressure on the other team's defense. And I think if you're asking Brunson to, these other guys like OG and Mikal Bridges, they all right, but they not Brunson. You understand what I'm saying? So to me, it's a fine line between Brunson getting better at drawing that defense, putting pressure on the defense just like he does, but doing a better job at reading, doing a better job at when that double team comes, now you could get it to OG. Now you could get it. Now you can get it to Bridges. I think if you have a passive Brunson, you helping the other team. You helping the other team. If you have a passive Brunson, the other team is like, whoo, we ain't got to worry about him. He trying to pass to Bridges and OG. All right, let them have it because they ain't gonna beat us.
I don't think he has to be passive, but it's back to the point of running some offense through Cat. To me, that opens up things for Brunson, and it makes him even more dangerous. So but it's not about
different. That's different. So yes, there are times because Cat is arguably your best player, some would say, or your second best player, some would say. That's fine. You have some sets you running through Cat. You have some sets you running through Brunson. But this can't be an equal opportunity.
No.
When I say equal opportunity, it doesn't mean that OG and Bridges can't have shots. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if Brunson is laid back and trying to get everybody else involved,
see, that's not what I'm saying.
The Knicks are not going to be at their best. Brunson has to be pushing it down their throats, but reading what the defense is giving him better.
I agree, but I'm saying equal for him and Cat because both of those things would open up for the rest of the team. So you know what I mean, and each other. So I'm saying Brunson is more dangerous off ball. If you're running the offense through Cat, and now Brunson's off ball, which means that you're not putting the same amount of attention on him. You know what I mean, more than likely it's one guy watching him as opposed to the whole team watching him. Now he becomes more dangerous in those settings. Right. I'm not saying, you got to go to OG 10 times in a row. Yeah, but you got to go to McCall. No, not equal opportunity, but those two guys, because of their skill sets, because they are our best two offensive players, because the fact that Cat is just as capable of in my opinion, creating for others, especially if he's utilized in that sense of the ball's going through him, because now the attention runs to him.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So now, that's what I mean when I say, I'm only referencing those two.
Right. And that both of them have to do a better job reading the defense. And I know Tom Thibodeau is not here, but and he could have been a bit more creative in his sets. But no matter what action you start with, you still gonna have to read what the defense is giving you, right? So yeah, I agree with you. It's just that Brunson has to remain aggressive. It's just like you going into a game and you were like, how are we gonna guard Durant? Like this guy. And Durant decides he's gonna come out and be a passer. You're like, what?
Made it easy.
Thank goodness he's making it easy for us. So Brunson has to find a way to be aggressive, run it down their necks, but at the same time, be able to read the defense. And this is the second thing. Those other cats, I shouldn't say cat, because we're thinking about like OG, Bridges, whoever else is on the team, you got to make your shots. Like they have to respect you. That's going to give Brunson space. They don't respect those guys. Now, you can say they don't respect them because Brunson doesn't go to them enough, whatever it is. So Brunson gets crowded. And these guys don't make them pay. And it's up to Brunson also to put them in position to pay. You want to double team me? I'm going to locate the open guy. And that open guy starts hitting shots. Now you're starting to create space for itself. So it all works. It all works together.
Well, part of that also becomes, again, the personnel on the floor, right? Because a lot of the times the guy they wanted to shoot the ball was the guy they left open, Josh Hart, or whatever the case. So it's like, all right, now you're telling him make the right read, which he does, but the right read is exactly what the defense wants because they're leaving this guy open. You know what I mean? So now it's like
back to lineups, though.
Yeah. Now you got to make the coach got to make the adjustment.
That's the coach have to make a decision. And Geoff talked about Hart. I love Josh Hart, and it took me a long time to get on board with Josh Hart not being in the lineup because I felt that what he brought kind of offset the spacing issues, and that when you bring in Deuce or Shammy for more spacing issues, there's other things you're taking out of the line. Like when Josh Hart goes out the lineup, you're not just taking out spacing, you're taking out a few other things with him: offensive rebound, the defensive rebounding, secondary playmaker, transition point. Like you're taking a lot of stuff out. But and that's legit. But there are games when you're not getting that from Josh Hart. He's not offsetting the spacing, and it's making it difficult for Brunson. And no change was made, and that part is on the coach. So I think with Brunson, it's a hard job. It's a hard job for him to be aggressive and read the defense.
I'll take my 30.7 assist point guard and who makes it to the second round of the playoffs at a minimum every year, hundreds times out of 100. Let me just say that.
I agree, Geoff. But if we're trying to get to the next level, and we've talked about this, his process just has to be, a little 100%. Better. The lineups will help him too. Like who you have think about, none of us was complaining about Brunson when Cat was at center and the opposing team's center was playing Cat. And we had all of that space and that the offense was looking historic. Nobody was complaining about Brunson hogging the ball. There was so many options. The Knicks with 30 assist games. As soon as they made that change, put the wing on Cat, put their center on Josh Hart closer to the basket, shut that offense down. Now everybody's complaining about Brunson. So my point is, lineups matter. You know, a player can look vastly different with in different lineups. And Brunson looked much better when he was in that lineup. It wasn't even a true 5 out because Josh Hart was still in the game. Josh Hart was shooting better though during that time, but they didn't have the center on Hart. And Brunson looked fun. I wasn't complaining about Brunson. I was like, oh, I didn't know he could pass like that. I didn't know he could pass like that.
To your point, also, Deuce Brunson lineups were highly effective throughout the season. When you had McBride and Brunson together on the court, you almost always got good results. And,
Right.
and I think there's something to be said for and learned from that fact also.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Brunson and Cat, is that a championship duo? You know, both of them are otherworldly on the offensive end and have defensive limitations. Can you win a championship with those two? Is it just about who you put around them? Geoff, we'll start with you, and then Tony. Shout out to Quiet Money sneaking in the chat.
We were 6 games away this year in year 1, so I think we can. I absolutely think we can. We talk like winning championships is this easy thing, right? It's not. Like, you need to be lucky. You need to have a lot of good things go right. And, having 2 all-NBA caliber players on your roster is a luxury, man. And we just need to enjoy it. And so are there things we need to figure out and work out as we move along? Without a doubt, but I don't see any reason why that can't be the foundation of a championship team, because I think you can build a defense that works around them, and I think you can build an offense that's even more potent than the one that we've seen. And we've talked about it. The one that, like, if you remove Josh Hart out of the lineup and you put someone who's a genuine shooter in there, all of a sudden you're back to that first 30 games of offense with the 30 assists and everything else, and there you go. But we won't know until they actually do it, right? It's all conjecture till then. So, It's easy to say no because they haven't. It's a little bit harder to say that they will because they haven't.
Yeah, and that team wasn't great defensively, but I think part of it was that Hart wasn't a great defender this season. And so, OG and Bridges can't cover everything. So what if you had OG, Bridges, and another 3-and-D guy, right, who can hit the 3, provide spacing, but also defend, and you got three and has some size, so there's some switchability. And you got 3 guys around that can defend and shoot the 3 around Brunson and Cat. Maybe the defense is 12th or 13th. Again, it may not be top 8, but does it need to be if your offense is singing the way it was the first 30 games of the season? Your thoughts, Tony, on whether that's a championship duo?
Yeah, I mean, Jokic and Murray did it together, and they're both not plus defenders. So I definitely think it could be done. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. Time, circumstance, a little bit of luck, and yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not.
Yeah. Do you think, would you lean into a 5 out to get the best out of a lineup with those two, meaning that, or do you feel like you need to cover their deficiencies with more of a defensive lineup, even if those guys aren't good shooters and it messes with the spacing a little bit, that it's worth it to take that offensive hit? Not that they won't score, trust me, they will, to have more defense? Or are you looking more toward a top 5 offense, 12 to 15 defense? I think either one could work, quite frankly. But what's your preference?
My preference is you know, another defender in that lineup. Like, even like you said, even if it's a 3-and-D guy to go along with the Bridges and OG and I would prefer that. But I also say it depends on who the coach is, right? So if you got this offensive mind that can maximize the 5 out and minimize the defense, maybe the zone breaks, maybe utilize the zone, maybe that helps them defensively. I think you could go either way. I think it's really about the philosophy of who comes in next.
But Tony, if it's a 3-and-D guy, that is, you can go 5 out.
Yeah, that's
That
true.
guy
That's
can
true.
actually
That's true.
shoot and defend.
That's true. That's
You
true.
you could go 5. You can go you can go
You
5
could,
out.
yeah, but what I'm saying is you can, and that helps with the defense. But yes, you're right. I mean, that would be 5 out, another 3-and-D guy. I mean, ideally, that's the best. That's the best route anyway, right? You need another guy that can play that is a plus shooter and a plus defender.
Right.
And
I still don't think your defense is gonna be like. It depends. It depends. It depends. I don't know how much that guy is hiding, Cat. But those 3 wings, those 3 other players, in a perfect world, are switchable, and it helps. And to your point, if we play zone at times and hide those 2,
and the taller the better. Because I'm not even. I'm thinking of in my brain. I'm thinking of like a 2 guy.
oh,
Like, what if it was Jonathan Isaac though? Like,
I'm thinking of a tall guy. I'm thinking of a 4. I'm thinking of like a Dorian Finney-Smith type.
okay.
I'm thinking more of a 4. You thinking more of a 2. Geoff, your thoughts?
My gut feeling is that I'd really like to see us have someone who is better at guarding the point of attack. I don't think that's Mikal Bridges' strong suit. I think if we could get someone in there, preferably someone who could shoot, because you always need shooters, but I think that's one of the problems with Hart too, is that he's not really good at guarding the point of attack. So, and he doesn't really shoot the ball that well either. So he's not an ideal fit in either circumstance with that starting unit. But I think if you can get someone who's really good at guarding the point of attack and can knock down some shots, that's to me the ideal to put in with that mix with OG and with McCall and with Cat and with Brunson. And because I think it makes it easier to hide Brunson. If you've got someone who's just a bulldog on the point of attack all the time, it makes it harder to get in your sets and harder to run your stuff. And I think we saw that at times in the Indiana series when Deuce was pressuring full court. They wouldn't get the ball across half court until 17, 18 seconds left. They have these complex sets to run their actions to get 1, 2, 3 screens so that they can get open and hunt the matchup they want. They didn't really have enough time to do that, and they would end up in ugly shots at the end of the shot clock, which is not, they want to get the shot off Mike D'Antoni 7 seconds or less kind of a thing. But if you can, and not that we can't just focus on Indiana, we have to be able to have the versatility to beat everyone. But I actually think that the biggest need on this roster is a better point of attack defender. And if that's not available, a guy who's a stretch 4, a legit, genuine stretch 4 might be the direction I might look to go, because then you can move OG to the 3 and again, not ideal. I still think the point of attack defender is more important, but if you can't get that, I think a legitimate starting 4 who could stretch the floor would be my 1B if I can't get the 1A.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point about that next person, that 3-and-D being a guard, because in a perfect world, we can cover a lot of bases with this 2 guard, right? If they could shoot the 3 and they could defend the point of attack and they could facilitate the offense. So now you can run Brunson. I mean, you can run Brunson off ball with Cat as well, but this person can facilitate. This player can facilitate the offense. You're covering a lot of ground with that. With that player. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't argue. I would say because that way you don't have to have Bridges on the point of attack. He could play the 2. Now you got OG at
I
the.
think you'll see a lot better defense from Bridges if he's not asked with being the point of
Bridges
attack. I
at
think
the
he's an excellent defender, but I also think you're leaning into his good defense, and I think that actually pairs well with the way OG plays defense too. And I think
And
you
they could
saw
really
that
be
with
wing
in
stop.
the lineup with those two.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Bridges is kind of light to play the 3, but he's done it right. And now you have OG at the 4, who's not a great rebounder, but I don't know if you're going to have a perfect lineup. I don't know if you're going to have a perfect lineup. Yeah, I think I would have to agree. I was thinking just a 3 and D, but instead of a 4, yeah, because I do think having another ball handler next to Brunson is imperative. Like somebody else has to be able to bring the ball up the court, and maybe the new coach empowers Bridges to do that. Maybe it's just a matter of empowering him to run the offense. Maybe he can. I don't know. The Knicks is very top heavy. I don't know, between 75 and 90% of their salary, somewhere, I mean, is in their top 4 players. Are you a proponent of just having a top 3 players and having more depth, or just keeping it the way it is and hoping we can find diamonds in the rough on that bench, whether that's the young guys taking big steps, whether finding somebody off the waiver wire that kind of takes a step up, whether that's using the taxpayers mid-level exception and finding a good player. What's your thoughts on just the balance between the Knicks being top heavy and depth?
I mean, I like us being top heavy. I think this is not me advocating for it, especially because y'all know I like Mitch. But you know what I mean? I think Mitch and his salary could be flipped for depth. I think Josh Hart at this point and his salary could be flipped for depth.
Well, he's in the rotation. That's out. That's just
I mean,
replacement.
That's true. But I mean, you were saying like three as opposed to 4 top guns. Right. You know what I mean? So I if you know, Josh Hart might start, might not. We don't know. So I think but I think I like us top heavy. I think we could switch our back and around and strengthen it and be fine. And I think
strengthen it how though? With flipping
even hypothetically, again, not advocating for it. And this was something we talked about last year. But even like flipping Mitch and whoever, like for Kessler and you talk about point of attack, even Colin Sexton. You know what I mean? Like even that, I think strengthens us, gives us depth. Obviously, we would have to probably give in the swaps or whatever it costs. But I think salary wise, moving guys around, we could get stronger depth and still be as top heavy as we are.
I just want to say, Mitch and Hart are part of the 7-man rotation.
7-man.
So I don't see the depth. I see you just switching them out for another player. But so for example, Mitch was top 7. You trade him for Kessler, we're not going to be deeper. It's just going to be Kessler instead of Mitch. If you trade Hart for one player, it's just going to be, you know, that player in the top 7 instead of Hart. You know what I mean?
Well, that was a bad example, but I mean, so let's say it's, for instance, Mitchell Robinson and then Kessler and what's the other guard that they have?
Sexton.
No, the other one who makes a little bit less.
Oh,
I
George
think
Watson.
Clarkson. He makes a little bit less. So those two combined can match up Mitchell Robinson's salary. So like you're doing a 2-for-1 and get depth that way, as opposed to me. I was just mentioning both of those guys because they got a good sizable contract that you could flip for 2 players, 2-for-1. But I think that's a route we could do. I think we need more depth more than anything else. And
I don't know how you do this, but I would be open to not re-signing Bridges for more depth. But I don't know how that works. Like, I don't know if that would need to be a sign and trade. The Knicks are over the first apron. Can they do?
You mean trading him for more depth?
Right. Because I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because if they extend him, they got to wait 6 months before they trade him. So they would have to trade him on the current contract or extend him first and then wait the 6 months.
Yeah. This is my thing. It's very hard to get the maximum out of the 4 players we have because it's only so much. There's only one basketball. You know what I mean? So are you going to get all you can get out of OG? Are you going to get all you can get out of Mikal Bridges and they're behind Brunson and Cat in the pecking order? You know what I mean? I think just one of those guys. And Bridges, they brought Bridges in basically to be a 3-and-D guy. He could do more, but I don't think they brought him in to do more. I think they brought him in to play good wing defense or point of attack defense, hit corner threes. I think you could find somebody else that can do that for cheaper than $5 million, 140. I mean, 5 years, 146 million. I think his extension is, and I like Bridges. I think he has a high ceiling. I just don't see us getting the most out of him on this particular roster, playing behind Cat and Brunson. And I think we can use that for more depth. I mean, you can use OG too, but I think OG's defense is otherworldly.
I agree with you, but I think if the Knicks are moving in a direction, I think they're trying to move OG before they move Bridges. And I agree with you because I would do it the opposite way, but I think now that's admitting another big mistake. You could sign OG and flip him, and that's not considered a mistake. You know what I mean? You move on for Bridges, you're not collecting the picks. You know what I mean? Anything close to the picks that you gave up to get him, and it better be a surefire better player. You know what I mean? It can't be flipping him for depth, and you're getting these 2 pieces that collectively add up to, you know what I'm saying? Like I think they gotta explain that to the boss man
to account the compensation they gave up for Bridges. Yeah, fair. That's fair. Geoff?
Well, it's a complicated question that you asked, but a really good one. So I'll try and not bore everyone with salary cap drudgery, but I think some of these points are key and important. First of all, you've got players in Mitchell Robinson and Mikal Bridges who are both extension eligible. And the Knicks have a history of moving on from those types of players. I don't need to list the names, Julius Randle being the most recent one. Obi Toppin was in that boat. And so if the Knicks don't feel like paying them long term, then it makes sense to move them, right? But what I'll say is if you want to go the depth route, then probably the shrewdest move is to trade OG Anunoby for parts. And the reason why I say that is because he's making between $45 and $50 million, whatever the contract is. So you could trade him for I'm just using, I don't have any specifics, but like three $15 million players, for example.
Yep.
And then,
and a 10.
or a 30 to whatever. But the point is, I say 315 because then that expands your rotation to two more guys, and you go to a 9-man rotation instead of a 7-man rotation right off the bat. And there's not really a way to do that with dealing Bridges, and there's certainly not a way to do that with dealing Robinson. Again, like you rightfully pointed at, or Hart. Hart makes $20 million. Do you want 3 $6 million players? Probably not, right? If the solution is trade Josh Hart by himself, you're probably better off just hoping that your rookies elevate their games. And I don't think the Knicks are going to wait on that or do that. I think that maybe I'm alone here. I think the Knicks are making a big move this summer. I do not think we're running this roster back. I think there's whether you like it or not is up for debate. But I think the Knicks are going big game hunting, whether it be for a KD or a Giannis or somebody in that neighborhood. And if it's Durant, and I don't like this, but it's what it is. And look, Shams reported the stuff on Durant at the trade deadline. So this is not pie in the sky stuff here. The Knicks made an offer to Phoenix that Phoenix turned down, according to Shams. So, but sometimes you make that same offer in the summertime, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, okay, we didn't want to do it at the time, but now we're good with it. Well, if you're going to acquire Kevin Durant, there's really only two ways to do it. The first one is straight up swap of Towns, which I don't think is a particularly good idea because Towns is so much younger. And I don't think that advances us to where we want to get. This is why I want to be out of the Kevin Durant business, by the way. But also the other option is to pair OG Anunoby with Josh Hart, and that gets you to the salary as well. But if you do that type of move, then you're moving in the opposite direction. You have Cat, you have KD, and you have Brunson, but now you have even less on your bench than you did before, right? Because you're trading out 2 for 1, and that becomes problematic also. So, there aren't any easy fixes, but I would be shocked if this is the core that they come back with, because they can't. If they keep things the way they are, I don't think they're going to go over the second apron to bring back Precious Achiuwa, because that doesn't make any sense. So that means you're subtracting Achiuwa out of the equation without really getting anything for him. And then you've got guys like the vet men guys who, we saw some nice stuff out of Landry Shamet. I think the campaign card is kind of played out at this point. PJ Tucker's probably gone too. He might come back on a lesser salary. Don't need to get into the complexities of that here and now, but there's just not a lot of ways to improve the end of the bench salary wise without dealing one of those top 5 guys. And so that's what leads me to the conclusion, which could be erroneous. I'm wrong all the time. You guys know that there's going to be a significant shakeup to this roster this summer with one of those top 7 players.
Yeah, and I'm just not for it. I'm just not for it. I mean, you get rid of the coach. Basically, you're saying I don't think he's the coach, but now you're making a major change to the roster, so the coach and the roster is not it. You know what I mean? I think the Knicks are front office, and listen, this remains to be seen. They may not make any moves. Let's not be impulsive here. Let's not be impulsive here. Trading young players for a 37-year-old 37-year-old Durant with an injury history, who's historically a really good defensive player, but maybe he's slowed down a little bit defensively. I haven't heard much about it. I haven't seen the numbers. Like, I feel like this is what it seems like to me, and I could be off base. Oh, I see a window here. We can actually win a championship next year. Let's go all in again by getting off the coach, bringing in a Giannis, bringing in a Durant strip. Like, come on, you made your moves already. You made your moves already. Giving up those picks for Bridges is because you felt like he was the finishing piece. In a vacuum, this front office is not stupid. In a vacuum, they know that you're not giving up that many picks for Bridges. But as a finishing piece to a championship, yeah, you do. So that's what they thought it was. Now you get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now you want to blow it all up and bring in a Giannis, bring in a Durant. Like relax. I don't get it, and I hope it doesn't happen, but we shall see.
Queen, I also think that, and Simmons mentioned this a few times, so I know he feels the same way. I think the Bridges trade was made with Julius Randle in mind, and the Cat situation fell on their laps, and they couldn't turn. You know what I mean? They couldn't turn it down. I think I really believe that. I think. I mean, remember, I was on record saying do that trade, but we didn't think it was even a possibility. Go get Mikal Bridges because I thought the fit was just that. But
Right.
even in my brain, that was with Randall, with Devo, with you know what I mean. That was with that team that's constructed. I don't know if the Cat trade fell on their lap first. I don't know that they go and do that Mikal trade, or I don't think they give up all the assets that they do to do it. You know what I mean? Without a way to pivot out of it. So I really think that it was a finishing piece move that they thought they were completing when they did that, and then the Cat situation was like, oh, we can't turn this down, especially knowing Mitchell Robinson was going to be out until December at that time. So it was like, oh, we killed two birds with one stone. We you know what I mean? We get rid of the Randall situation, whether we're going to resign him or not. We get a center in now, and you know what I mean? So I think that's what.
Yeah.
But then if you extend Bridges, like, and if you know, that's going to put
you. They might not. They might not now. They might not now.
Look, they're not just going to let him walk. I mean, you're either. You're gonna. You know,
what I'm saying, he still got 2 years, right? He still got 2 years. They don't have to extend him now. They can.
This year coming is the last year on a contract, no?
Oh, I thought it was 2. I thought it was 2.
Or maybe it is. Maybe it. I mean, we can easily check it. That's true. He's eligible for an extension, but yeah, it may be 2.
And if he signs that extension, you are over the second apron. Like there's not any way to avoid that. If we give Bridges an extension, that puts us into not in the current year. Like next year, his salary will be still. But when the extension kicks in, the Knicks will then officially be over the second apron team, and that really restricts your ability.
This year is the last year, 25-26.
And then he's a free agent. Yeah. Him and Mitch, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe they trying to lock in that roster because once they hit that second apron, it's going to be more challenging to change the roster. Last question. Are you the way the salary cap is, and this may also be why they didn't see Thibodeau in a favorable light. The way the CBA is structured, you're gonna probably have to have cheap contracts in your rotation. And they brought in 4 rookies last year. Maybe the front office didn't think any of them would be in the back end of the rotation or in the rotation. And in this new CBA, you probably do need to find some cheap players. Are you an advocate for the rookies, one or all of the rookies on our bench being in the rotation next year on a championship contending team? Or if you only see 1 or 2 being in the rotation, um who would that be? Geoff, we'll start with you then, Tony.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I'll say this, based upon the way that they structured their deals, I think that the Knicks expect Tyler Kolek to be in the rotation moving forward, because they gave him more than just a minimum contract. And I think he's almost making close to what Deuce is making. So less, but still. So I think from that point, the Knicks, by what they paid him and how they structured his contract, are expecting him to be back. I think Huck Porty was a little bit of a surprise to them, pleasantly so. And I think obviously they'll pick up his option for this year, but whether that, what that leads to after that is interesting. And Daddier, I don't know. I mean, Daddier was a first round pick, so he's real young, he's real raw. But as you said, at some point, you need to get some production from somewhere, and so you may have to rely on these guys to give you quality minutes. And I don't know if they're at the point where they're going to do that, or whether they're going to develop or not. But Huck Porty and Kolek look the most ready now. But again, how is McCullough coming back from his injury? Because that's a guy who, before he got hurt, was probably going to be a lottery pick at Kansas, and then he had all the injuries and all of that stuff, and it looked like he was back to healthy. So can he get back to where he is, and then and where you need him to be? I think the way our salary structure is, I think we're going to need at least 2 of those guys to turn into rotation players in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Tony?
My bad. What was the question? Oh, the rookies. I think Huck Porty's going to play. I think he's got to play. I think he has a dynamic that this team doesn't really have. A little bit of toughness, a little bit of tenacity, a little bit of nasty to his game that I think, has been missing. I think, it don't really matter now because it's a new coach coming in, but I think he's the reason Sims became expendable. When we seen Sims getting, he was in the rotation as minimal as possible. He was in there, and I thought Huck Porty was lined up to be next in line. Daddier, I know a lot of people love him. Shout out to Sim. I know that's his guy. He said we need that shoot, and I don't think we've seen enough from him to kind of really stand on him making his way into the rotation. And if he does, great. And Kolek, I think he's another one that has a skill set that we could utilize on this team, especially the distribution of the ball and kind of that lead guard mentality. You know what I mean? You could argue that Brunson is a shooting guard in the point guard's body. I think Kolek is a pure point guard by nature. So I think his time, if given, will be minimal. But I think the guy with the biggest opportunity to kind of impact by playing well is Huck Porty. I think he's a versatile big. He's not a shooter, but he could step out and do a little 12-footer. You know what I mean? He got a little offensive game at the rim, and he's going to try to block everything that comes his way. So my order would be Huck Porty, Kolek, and Daddier. and I might even put McCullough above. Like, we didn't see him enough, but I might put McCullough in front of both Kolek and Dadier, because skill set. Like, you talk about, like, his draft comparison was Josh Hart and a little bit of a better shooter. So how can you not ask for that?
Yeah. Let's see what happens. I think you already know I'm not a big proponent of having to count on young players. I'm okay with spot duty. I'm okay if they're in the back end of the rotation. I guess it depends on where in that bench rotation they are. Because I do think our bench needs to be stronger. I think we need a scorer off that bench. I think Deuce is more of a shooter than a scorer. And I think we need to improve the top half of the bench. That 6, 7, 8 guy. And if we have rookies, on the back half of the bench, 9th, 10th guy, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. They're gonna play, but you're not really counting on them. It's not like if they don't show up, you're gonna lose the game. You know what I mean? So I'm good with that. And just, let me just say,
okay.
and I think Hukporti can give the Knicks some good minutes. I don't know if he's ready to be the backup to Cat. I think that's a lot, but I think he can give good minutes. Kolek, I'm not sure if Kolek is ready to be the backup to Brunson. And if they do that, I still want a third point guard on this team in case we get into the playoffs and he doesn't play well. We have a veteran replacement. Those are the two guys I feel comfortable with. Dadier, let's see what happens. I know he struggled with his shooting. Even in the G League, if I'm not mistaken, he struggled with his shooting. Let's see how he comes back. I think he probably has the biggest upside, but where is his floor right now? Right? Hukporti may have a better floor, even though they play different positions. So yeah, let's see.
Dadier, I think number one, he might have the biggest floor, but he also might have the
ceiling.
Ceiling, but he also might be able to make the largest leap from one year to the next, because he also was adjusting to the NBA game. Whether, you know what I mean, whether you consider that the G League and then the real game. I also think what the new coach decides to do as far as the starting lineup will determine what of these young guys gets the opportunity. If Mitch is starting alongside Cat, that I think relegates Hukporti to a backup center behind Mitch as opposed to behind Cat, which opens up that. And then if Deuce happens to start, you know what I mean? I think that actually opens up the door for Kolek to kind of help distribute with a guy next to a guy like Josh Hart and Hukporti or Mitch or whoever, and kind of feed those guys who don't necessarily score on their own.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Do either of you have a question you want to ask of the panel before we get out of here?
Who do they want the next coach to be? I think that the names have been all over the place, but got 341 people in the chat. So you know what I mean. If we get 20 names, 20 different names, that'd be dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So who y'all want the next coach to be? Who's your personal preference?
Yeah.
I don't want to see Monty Williams, to be honest with you.
You want to, or you don't want to?
I want to.
You want to. What do you like about him?
He coached the Suns to the finals. He's a hard-nosed coach. He's younger. So I think maybe we'll get the best of both worlds. I think if he took the job, he would be highly engaged and motivated to prove that Detroit was a fluke, and that he can maximize a roster, and I think that he would get along well with Brunson, and I think that he would solve a lot of our answers. I wouldn't be against Jason Kidd. He was a coach on the floor. He's very smart basketball wise, but again, I would be shocked if the Mavs let us do that.
Yeah, somebody said Jeff Van Gundy. Listen, Jeff Van
That's
Gundy
going
is
backwards from Tibbs. Van Gundy is a fossil of the 90s. And I love Jeff Van Gundy. Don't get me wrong. But you want to talk about lack of offensive creativity. Like, if you looked up in the dictionary, Jeff Van Gundy's picture hanging on Alonzo Mourning's leg is right there.
I don't know about Monty Williams. He does have Nick ties, Nick draft pick. I remember grabbing that rookie card. I'm just ready to figure out what it is. You know what I mean? Hopefully there's not too much baggage. You know what I mean? Not too much of a unfavorable history with the guy. You know what I mean? Where he could get a fair shake to kind of do his thing.
But you know what? The success of coaches depend on so many things. You know, look at Rick Carlisle when he was where was he at?
Somebody mentioned it earlier, Detroit.
Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And now and now look at him, you know, with Indiana. Look at Bickerstaff with Cleveland. Then look what he did with so much of a coach's success has to do with roster, buy-in. There's so many different variables. So even if a coach didn't do well at another spot, doesn't mean that they won't be good for the Knicks.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, even as much as I was a fan of the Tibbs hire, mm-hmm. I knew the baggage and the reputation that came with him. You know what I mean? Like, this is why I keep saying, if I'm only going to say one name who I don't want, and that's Doc Rivers. It's too much baggage that comes with him. You know what I mean? Right off the jump, before he coaches a preseason game. Mm-hmm. There's too.
I don't want to be in the Doc Rivers business either. Telling them
so
I'm 100% with that.
So that's what I mean. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can have questions, you know, how good he is or whatever the case, but when you start getting those things that follow you from multiple organizations, you know what I mean? I'm gonna start taking heed to it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. Any last words?
Can't believe the Queen's Court is over until October or whatever. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. But what a fun season, a great ride. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. There's no better group of folks to share it with than not just the panel, but the chat as well, but especially Tony and Steph. I admire you both so much, and it's really cool to get to work with some folks who you really think so highly of. And so I'm very blessed that, you know, you took Delusional up from the ranks. Well, Steph brought me up from the ranks the same way. And so I'm very thankful. And I love this. I love this community. I love this team, and I love the chat. And let's not be doom and gloom. There's still a lot of good things happening in Knickland. We still have a very talented roster. And we're going to get a new coach, and we're going to be able to build off of this.
Facts.
Yeah. I mean, shout out Sim. You talk about people bringing people up the ranks. You know what I mean? You and I, Queen, we both wouldn't be where we are without Sim. So shout out to him. And Queen's Court, man, is going on vacation. It's all right. It's gonna force me to jump on Dope Soul. You know, I don't know if I'll make it every week, but you know what I mean. I definitely make sure I make my rounds so I can join the show with you. I'm probably taking a little break as well. I might throw something in during the week, but I gotta work a week straight, and then I'm on vacation, so I'll try to squeeze one in. But if not, I'll be back in about 2 weeks. if I can't squeeze one in after.
And you're gonna all that, and then all the Knicks news is gonna drop exactly when you're in the middle of that, and you're gonna have 4 emergency live streams, and you're gonna be like with Sim, and
I'm not bringing the computer, but I will have the phone. So if I gotta jump on with somebody's show, I'll be able to do it.
Thanks. Yeah. Tony, I appreciate you. Geoff, I appreciate you. Sim, I appreciate you. Another season of the Queen's Court is in the books.
Successful season
until October. We can't do it without without you guys that's in the chat, without the replay gang, without the silent listeners. This is a blessing, just to be able to have a community you could come to and talk about the Knicks. The Knicks content creation community is just crazy. Whatever you want stats, we got that. You want to just come and just talk about somebody you don't like. You want to find an anti-cat show, you can find that. An anti-Brunson show, you can find that. An anti-Thibodeau when he was the coach, you can find that. There's like so many platforms here. You can find what you want. And I always said, for me, it's about finding your tribe. Everybody don't give it up the way you want it given up. You know what I mean? So you just find a content creator that works for you, or few content creators that work for you, and stick and stick with them. Wiz says no vacation until after we win a championship. This my therapy.
Man, that's hard. That's slave labor conditions right there, Wiz. I have to say nasty things about Deuce now. What are you doing, bro?
Right.
I'm taking my daughter to the Kendrick Lamar show, and then
nice.
we gonna be on
that
the road
sounds amazing
for a little bit.
Nice.
So
enjoy.
Yeah. But we'll still be rocking on Dope Soul Sports, every Thursday. And then I'm going to throw in another show, maybe even Monday night, throwing another show in the off season. Tony Crowe will still be doing what he's doing on Knicks and Bruises right here. Nothing but Knicks. Sim will be doing what he's doing in the off season. So there'll be plenty of content to go around. I appreciate everybody that showed up today. Until next time, family.